Hello everyone, welcome to Let Me Speak. My name is Akash Freddy and I'm going to talk about Nirbhaya case. 4 Indian men executed for 2012 Delhi bus rape and murder which shocked the whole world. And before we jump into the chapter, make sure to subscribe our channel. Also don't forget to click the bell icon.
Who is Jyoti Singh? Jyoti Singh was born and raised in Delhi, while her parents were from a small village in the Balia district of Uttar Pradesh. Her father sold his ancestral land to educate her, and worked double shifts to continue to pay for her schooling. What happened to Nirbhaya? The student boarded an off-duty bus at around 20:30 local time on the 16th of December 2012 with a male friend. They were returning home after watching a film at an upscale mall. The 6 men, who were already on board, attacked the couple, taking turns to rape the woman, but for brutally assaulting her with an iron rod. Her friend was beaten. Image caption: police checking the bus in which the student was raped. They were then thrown out onto the roadside to die. Some passers-by found them naked and bloodied and called the police. 2 weeks later, after widespread protests that demanded India to reckon with its treatment of women, the victim died in a hospital in Singapore, where she was taken for further treatment after her condition deteriorated in a Delhi hospital. Medical treatment and death. On the 19th of December 2012, Singh underwent her 5th surgery which removed most of her remaining intestine. Doctors reported that she was in stable but critical condition. On the 21st of December, the government appointed a committee of doctors to ensure she received the best medical care. By the 25th of December, she remained intubated, on life support and in critical condition. Doctors stated that she had a fever of 102 to 103 degrees Fahrenheit, 39 degrees Celsius, and that internal bleeding due to sepsis was somewhat controlled. It was reported that she was stable, conscious and meaningfully communicative. 48. At a cabinet meeting chaired by Manmohan Singh on the 26th of December, the decision was taken to fly her to Mount Elizabeth Hospital in Singapore for further care. Mount Elizabeth is a multi-organ transplant specialty hospital. Some doctors criticized the decision as political, questioning the need to transfer an intensive care unit (ICU) patient for organ transplants that were not scheduled for weeks or even months later. Government sources indicate that the Chief Minister of Delhi, Sheila Dikshit, was personally behind the decision. Hours earlier, Union Minister P. Chidambaram had stated that Jyoti was not in a condition to be moved. An anonymous source quoted by the Sunday Guardian stated that the decision to move her was taken when it was already clear that she would not survive the next 48 hours. During the 6-hour flight by air ambulance to Singapore on the 27th of December, Jyoti suddenly went into a near collapse, which a later report described as a cardiac arrest. 56. The doctors on the flight created an arterial line to stabilize her, but she had been without pulse and blood pressure for nearly 3 minutes and never regained consciousness in Singapore. On the 28th of December, at 11 a.m. IST, her condition was extremely critical. The chief executive officer of the Mount Elizabeth Hospital said that the victim suffered brain damage, pneumonia, and abdominal infection, and that she was fighting for her life. Her condition continued to deteriorate, and she died at 4:45 a.m. on the 29th of December, Singapore Standard Time, 2:15 a.m., the 29th of December, IST, 8:45 p.m., the 28th of December, UTC. Her body was cremated on the 30th of December in Delhi under high police security. The Bharatiya Janata Party, BJP, the country's main opposition party at that time, criticized the high security levels, stating that they were reminiscent of the emergency era, during which civil liberties were suspended. What happened to that? Criminals: 4 Indian men convicted of the gang rape and murder of a student in Delhi in 2012 have been hanged. Akshay Thakur, Vinay Sharma, Pawan Gupta and Mukesh Singh were sentenced to death by a trial court in 2013. The 4 were hanged in the capital's high-security Tihar prison in the first executions in India since 2015. The victim died from her injuries days after being raped by 6 men on a moving bus. The incident caused outrage and led to new anti-rape laws in India. The 23-year-old physiotherapy student was dubbed Nirbhaya, the fearless one, by the press as she could not be named under Indian law. 6 people were arrested for the attack. One of them, Ram Singh, was found dead in jail in March 2013, having apparently taken his own life. Another, who was 17 at the time of the attack, was released in 2015 after serving 3 years in a reform facility, the maximum term possible for a juvenile in India. In the last few months, all 4 convicts filed petitions in the Supreme Court in a bid to reduce their sentences to life imprisonment. But the top court rejected their petitions, leaving the men with no other legal recourse. A last-minute appeal to have the death penalties commuted was also rejected hours before the executions. Minutes after the convicts were hanged on Friday morning, the victim's mother said, "I hugged my daughter's photograph and told her we finally got justice." Captioned her 4 men had pleaded not guilty. Her father said that his faith in the judiciary had been restored. Security was tight outside the prison with a large number of police and paramilitary personnel deployed to maintain law and order. A group of people carrying placards had gathered outside the prison gates and began celebrating after the executions were announced. Some chanted death to rapists and waved posters thanking the judiciary. Prime Minister Narendra Modi tweeted on Friday morning saying justice has prevailed. He added that the country had to build a nation where the focus is on women's empowerment. Despite the fact that this case made rape and sexual violence against women a focus, there has been no sign that crimes against women are abating. Recently released figures from the National Crime Records Bureau show police registered 33,977 cases of rape in 2018. That's an average of 93 cases a day. How did India react to the crime? "Wake up India, she's dead," screamed one newspaper headline, announcing her death. The horrific crime triggered a firestorm of protests in India, in ways that had not really been seen before. The capital came to a standstill as protesters occupied the main streets. Authorities even temporarily closed some metro stations in a bid to stop people from gathering. Thousands of furious protesters, mostly young women and men, still turned up at India Gate in the center of the city, prompting police to use water cannons to disperse the crowds. There were widespread protests in India. Protests continued in Delhi and several other cities for a fortnight, the number of days it took the victim to succumb to her injuries. The Delhi government tried to halt rising public anger by announcing a series of measures intended to make the city safer for women: more police night patrols, checks on bus drivers and their assistants, and the banning of buses with dark windows or curtains. The attack became an inflection point, galvanizing a national debate on the treatment of women. Public outrage over the crime mounted again in 2015 when the BBC broadcast a documentary called India's Daughter, which included an interview with one of the convicts who blamed the victim for what happened to her. In India, the documentary caused a big enough stir that resulted in the film being banned. Television news channels that were supposed to broadcast the film ran a blank screen instead. Has India become safer for women? A short answer to that question would be no. And that's because despite the increased scrutiny of crimes against women since December 2012, similar violent incidents have continued to make headlines in India. And statistics tell only a part of the story. Campaigners say thousands of rapes and cases of sexual assault are not even reported to the police. I personally know women who have never reported being assaulted because they are ashamed, or because of the stigma associated with sexual crimes, or because they are afraid that they will not be believed. Some say strict punishment, swiftly delivered, will instill a fear of the law in the public mind and deter rape. But experts say the only permanent solution to the problem is to dismantle the hold of patriarchal thinking, the mindset that regards women as being a man's property. Until that happens, how do women and girls in India ensure their safety?
Hey guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you really like our content, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe.